Everybody, Sudeep has already introduced me to you, and I have been a dance scholar now for several years. Before that, I was a dance critic, and some of the dancers present here would remember some of my writings in the Times of India and my presentations on Doordarshan, especially for the dance and music program, the National Program of Dance and Music. And just sort of to establish the fact that we are actually a family, I want to mention that Shashank, who you heard play yesterday and the day before that, who has been hailed as a child prodigy, his first national program of dance, of music was presented by me. It was, I think, some 30 years ago, so you can imagine how young he was, and even I was young at that time. So I've been given 20 minutes, and I couldn't help but think about T20 when he mentioned 20 minutes. And jokingly, I decided to say 20 things about this new book, which I have written, called Non-Gharanedaar, Pandit MOHANRAO KALIANPURKar, the Paviour of Kathak. I'm now not really going to refer to the book, but I will keep this with me because I've made a few notes in it. And I just wanted to mention to you that there was a reason for writing this book. It is our source of sanity during the COVID period. So I have also called it my COVID cottage industry. And it's not just me, there are 3 authors who are involved with it. And I'd like to shout out and give a sort of clap to Shama Bhate, the senior Kathak dancer based in Pune and Guru. Shilpa Bhide, her disciple, now an independent dance teacher herself with an excellent school for Kathak, and we got together. So the blurb on the book says, 3 authors, 2 cities, 1 story over 2 years. And this was our story really to keep sane during the COVID times. Now you may ask me, how is it possible to do a writing in COVID when we were, closeted in and we couldn't step out? That's when 3 people help. Any detective here would tell you that you need to triangulate your facts. So with the 3 of us present there was a natural triangle that got formed. And I will mention some cases where we were able to catch little errors of dates only because there were the 3 of us and each brought their own lifelong knowledge into it. So 150 years are contained in this book, not of Mohan ji, but of the authors. So we bring in those many years together into it, So So one of the reasons we could do it was because actually when it was his centenary in 2012, Shama Bhate had done a basic work, a seminar on him. At that time, more people who knew him were still alive and with us. And this was one of the heartless parts of COVID. We were losing our informants even after we had reached out to them in the process of writing the book. So many of them we lost between the time we fixed the appointment and when it was time for the appointment, we did not have them anymore. So that could have broken us, but instead it gave us that much more energy and determination that we must get this book out. I want to mention to you that the title was deeply thought about, and that also explains why the book was written. So with my editor, who was a perfectionist, he's an IIT engineer who's taken to editing. He turned around and told me, no italics. I said, no, we keep 1 set of italics and submit to everything else that you say. But we keep this because this is a new word that has been coined, non-Gharanedaar. One has heard about gharanas, one has heard about Gharanedaars, but non-Gharanedaar, because the secret of the book really lies in this word. There are 2 words in this title that everybody has commented on, and I will talk for a moment on both. Non-Gharanedaar. At the time when Pandit MOHANRAO KALIANPURKar took to dance, the only dancers were either women who were looked down upon and stigmatized, or men of the traditional lineage families. He broke the mold. He came from a well-educated Saraswat, Chitrapur Saraswat Brahmin family. You know, the Saraswats are an amazing community. They hold each other from falling. And that is why it's no surprise that this community, the Saraswat community, actually has two cooperative banks, not one but two. Also in Mumbai, they're a tiny community, but you see a lot of them in the arts. Some of the best known names, I'll just mention a few: Benegal, Padukone, Shamsi, Kaikini, they are Chitrapur Saraswat Brahmins. So him taking to the arts is not surprising. That he took to dance was what was surprising. Okay, so he comes from no Gharana, hence Non-Gharanedaar. The problem with Non-Gharanedaar artists were the three of us recognized it very well because we are three Non-Gharanedaar Kathak dancers. We are because he was. Because people like him broke the mold and allowed people like us to get into the field and learn it as if we had a right to it. You know, not living with whimsical gurus all the time. We could get away with our lives and lead the lives that we chose. So his being Non-Gharanedaar was very important. But also, how many of you had ever heard of him? He is the man who wrote the first syllabus of Kathak. He was the first director of the National Institute of Kathak, the Kathak Kendra, hailed as the Bolshoi of Kathak in India. But nobody remembers him because he was not Gharanedaar. Gharanedaar people have the entire Gharana that fabricates also sometimes histories, fantastical histories about their golden boys, mostly golden boys, in fact only golden boys. So he had no Gharana to support him. It had to be somebody who wrote about him fast enough before a person lives as long as his memory is carried in the minds of others. But all those who knew him were leaving us, and so this book had to be written. It was written at a rapid pace, but I'm happy to say that it is well written. Now the question of Paviour, the other word that everybody asks. So many people come and whisper in my ear, I think you got the spelling wrong. It should have been an S, not a P. Savior of Kathak. He wasn't saving Kathak. He was just paving the way that we could get to it easier. So he drafted the syllabus. The minute you draft a syllabus, you take it out from, as I mentioned, whimsical gurus' decision, should I teach, should I not teach? What is the content of Kathak? To date, Kathak dancers will never be able to explain to you where does Kathak start and what is included in Kathak. So at least we have a draft. That syllabus that he drew is taught still in Keragar at MS University, Vadodara. I know that Sri Aurobindo had a very close connection with Vadodara, and so I think that this is one point. There are 4 points in which I feel that I think destiny, the word that you used yesterday, Lalit, or divinity, a word that was used today, is at play at all times. So I heard of Mohanrao Kallianpurkar accidentally in the United States of America when I was interviewing a pioneer, American pioneer of Indian dance, and she told me he was so tall, we called him Himalaya. And I heard that word being used today in the presentation. It's not a coincidence that a word like this, not a normal kind of word to describe people, was used even for him, you know. Secondly, just as Sri Aurobindo was very adept, so adept that he was nominated for the Literature Prize and for the Peace Prize, here was a man who was extremely adept. He would sing very well. He could play the sitar so well, and I'll tell you a story about it. He would draw and paint. Every year he would create a new Sri Chakra, worship it during the year, and at Navratri, Visarjan karo it and create another one. So we have only one Sri Chakra left, only one Sri Chakra painted by him. And of course he would dance beautifully. the story about him and sitar and all that. Our book starts with that. That's the prologue actually. 200 pages. The prologue is the one story I'm going to tell you. I would have liked to read, but I have a time limitation, so we will just tell the story. You know, at the Sangeet Natak Academy Awards function in 1962, the award for the sitar and the award for Kathak got exchanged. Kathak dance. So when Mohanrao Kallianpurkar was called up for his award, he was rapidly handed an award. When he looked at it, it didn't say his name, it said Ravi Shankar. And when Ravi Shankar looked at his award, it didn't say his name. The shape was the same, but the name was not. That said Mohanrao Kallianpurkar. So the two of them met in the green rooms and laughed about this mistake, bureaucratic mistake. And then Ravi Shankar ji turned around towards Mohanrao Kallianpurkar and said, Mohan, if you had continued playing the sitar, you would have got this. And he turned around and said, Ravi, if you had continued dancing, you would have got that award. So that's the story with which we start. We pull you into the interesting life and times of Mohanrao Kallianpurkar. He takes to dance by meeting a guru who had at that moment been shamed by the Raigad Gharana. You know, at the Raigad Principality, he had not been able to arrive at the sum in some performance. And that was the only court that was still remaining because the British let it be. Raigad joins the Union of India. It never joined British India, you know. So that was the last court that there existed. And when he got this embarrassment done, crestfallen, Sundar Prasad ji comes to Bombay and he does one performance which is given to him in charity, like, okay, I've danced perform. And that is the performance that Mohanrao ji sees and leaves everything behind. So a family that was already pretty freaked out, because it was a family of doctors and engineers and scientists and professors, already worried about his interest in the sitar, then get to face with the idea of him now leaving all of that and going into Kathak. Okay? And when his guru had to set up his school, the Chitrapur Saraswat Brahmins came together and in the cooperative spirit gave everything from benches to tables to fan to gurus and started the school because their son decided that he wanted to be with his guru and learn Kathak. His Guru Bhakti was legendary, and I'll tell you another very interesting story about his Guru Bhakti. Incidentally, he was trained in both Jaipur and Lucknow Gharanas. So, if you sort of decide to break this word up and, very finely, I will lose the argument, okay? But you understand why I say non-Gharanedaar. So he has learned from both Gharanas, and his devotion was immense. So his own guru had this life-size image of Bindadeen Maharaj. And he would begin his classes by first doing pranam and all that. Mohanrao ji also started the very same system of doing pranam and all to this image of Bindadeen Maharaj. And when he had his independent class in Lucknow at the Bhatkhande Music College, which was the first, incidentally, the first center, institutionalization. Anybody who's looked at the history of dance will know that post-independence and around independence we had a few processes happening. It was the institutionalization of dance, the writing down of knowledge, the disciplining of the subject through syllabi and things like that. So when his guru came, he said, you too have this image of Bindadeen Maharaj. How sad he must be locked up in your room. This was his city. Let us take him for a walk, a ride in the chalk and all that. Anybody else, including me, when I was hearing this story, I was like, oh my God, no, he's not going to take this life-size statue. He did, without batting an eyelid. He puts him into the car and all three of them go for a little jaunt around the streets of Lucknow. It was the sort of normal thing for a Shishya to do, to respect his guru to that extent. Mohanrao ji was amazing. He used to write poetry as well. He wrote many like vandanas to his gurus by name and finally, when it came to his own expectations from his disciples, he was not that demanding. He just wanted them to flower and be happy. So much so that he never used to go for dance performances. After he retired from Lucknow, he comes back and teaches at NCPA, which incidentally is the reason why we did the first launch at NCPA of this book. And he decided he would never go and see his students perform. One of his young students, Bhagishri Oak, not so young now, performed in a performance that many of you might still know. The Surmani and Shringarmani awards are given at those conferences. And there was a lady Kathak dancer who did not take too kindly to the fact that her disciple came second, and she was abusive to Mohanrao ji right there. But I have seen a picture of Mohanrao ji immediately after that incident, and that picture is carried in the book too. And you will see that he does not have any rancor, although Bhagishri Oaks mentioned, she said, I just wanted to die, thinking that my Guru has been treated so badly, and I compelled him to come here. So there are a lot of aspects about the times, about sociology, about the economics and the worry, and an insight into this unique community that has contributed so much to the arts profile of India and continues to do so. Had this book not been written, after a while, we would not have remembered much about Mohanrao Kallianpurkar. Writing this book has been 3 Non-Gharanedaars tribute to a great Non-Gharanedaar master. And what else? 200 pages, as I mentioned, with almost 50 photographs. And yes, one very unique thing. Hold this for a minute. We have QR code built into this book. You'll see it, including one page 101, which is 3 QR codes. This is the first book on Indian dance with a cloud associated with it. It's not just the first book on him, but on Indian dance with a cloud associated in it. You will find his articles, you will find articles about him, you will find his speech at the National Dance Seminar in 1958, a defining moment in Indian dance history. You will find gazillion pictures in it, additional, and we have kept one QR code blank for now. As and when we get more pictures, as and when we get more material, we will upload it into it. So this is actually a living book. Thank you very much.
Questions, we can take 2 questions. Any queries, comments?
And music, obviously, this I give it to you.
Thank you very much. You gifted me so much musical delight.
I mean, it's just a musical question. Since you said that so much deep about the history and so much insight on Kathak, I personally wanted to ask you that, do you, what is your insight about the Gharana system? Like, you have personally written, so what is your insight on the real?
Thank you very much. So, the Gharana system, in my opinion, was an early version of what we call geographical indicators now. It was a GI tag that was given. So, those Gharanas that were well established wanted to carry forward the equity, the cultural equity that was attached to the Gharanas. So, the Gharana systems rose. They actually start, if you map it, they are with states that have promoted the arts. So Jaipur, Lucknow, Raigad, Banaras, these are the Kathak Gharanas. But you have other sub-Gharanas also. Mirzapur, Betwa, the lesser principalities also supported. But those didn't stay forever. A Gharana comes into existence when it propagates itself by creating enough people who perform it. Many Gharanas moved, Bombay became a big thing. For a while, the Bhendi Bazaar Gharana in music, for instance, survives in Bombay. I think there is a whole Gharana today in Pune. It is distinctive, strong in Kathak, that is. I'm just talking about Kathak for the moment. Distinctive because it's strong in music, it's strong in poetry. It bears the impress of Rohini Ghati, who incidentally was the most senior-most disciple of Mohanrao Kalyampurkar. Both Marathi tie, could speak Marathi. They were very close, both very tall. She was the female Himalaya, he was the male Himalaya. So the way you mold your body, for instance, in Kathak, then has to depend also on your proportions. If you are very tall, you do a lot of stretches and things like that. Otherwise, just arm ke isharas can also suggest a curvature in the body. So this is what I feel. I subscribe very strongly, and this whole idea came into my head when I read Daniel Newman's writings on Gharanas, where he said, watch the railway map of India. He says, because once the railways came, artists from faraway places could now go to distant centers of performance. How do they carry the equity? In a local area, they were known as the maestros. How are they going to convey how strong they were musically? So they carried the name of their city. So hence the idea of the geographical indicators of your Gharanas being geographical indicators of your. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we need you for a whole day, and in fact, now the next time when you come, we'll just do like an encyclopedia of knowledge. Thank you so much. We've known each other for many years. This is great.
Somebody asked me today how many years, and I said at least 16 years.
So great. She's come all the way from Delhi to share